Jeffrey. This is Sarah and this is Chia Hui, and today we'll be presenting to you all about the topic of Chinese privilege. Now let me start by telling you all a story. So this is Jack. Every day he hangs out in school with his group of classmates. However, he has no idea what they're talking about because they're speaking in a totally different language. How would you feel if you're Jack? Would you feel alienated like this boy in the picture? Okay, so today we're gonna talk about kids and racism, about how Chinese privilege can affect those from the minority groups, and how those from the minority groups may not usually feel comfortable if Chinese privilege continues to occur. So racial privilege occurs when one race in a country has an advantage over the others. So in many countries around the world, racial privilege is likely to occur because every country is not made up of just one race. So like even in Singapore, even though the government has strived for equal opportunities for all race, racial privilege still occurs because it is something that cannot be overcome completely. So in Singapore, 7 out of 10 of the population is made up of the Chinese, while the rest comes from the minority groups. This usually leads to problems of Chinese privilege, one of which is in our daily interaction and in our daily lives, such as in schools and in the workplace through the interactions. For example, like the story of Jack, he has no idea what his classmates were talking about because he is from a minority race compared to his friends who are from the same race which belongs to the majority race. Now, how many of you have come across situations in which you are required to show your race whenever you're applying for a job? Okay, thank you. So basically in Singapore these days there's been cases in which industries require citizens to be Chinese in order for them to take up certain jobs, which have led to certain workplace discrimination, such as in the Yao Yao and Prima Deli industry, in which those who are not from the majority race were not given the job because they are not Chinese and are not able to speak the Chinese language. You might be wondering, what could be the problem of Chinese privilege? Well, if the problem of Chinese privilege is not overcome or handled properly, it might lead to feelings of neglectness among those from the minority race. And in the future, they might not feel a sense of belonging in Singapore. If this problem is aggravated, it might lead to problems of racial riots, such as in the past, and we might not want that to repeat itself. More importantly, it is about creating a sense of belonging amongst people from different races so that they will feel happy living in Singapore. Yeah, so Chinese privilege exists in our daily life, workplace, and entertainment industry, and this will be elaborated by Chia Hui. Before that, we'll show you a short clip about Chinese privilege.
What's racial harmony about?
Many reasons do together try to learn some words from the language and eat some traditional food. The racial harmony started because of the racial riot.
So we wanted to celebrate the day of the riot where we get together instead of fighting each other.
Last year's Racial Harmony Day?
No.
Do you talk about race in your class?
Just today.
Huh?
Just today.
Just today only. So the
International Friendship Day.
International Friendship Day today. The rest of the time?
Not that often.
Oh, okay. What about at home? Do you talk about other races when you're at home? Your parents talk about other races?
No.
You have a best friend?
Yes.
What race is your best friend? Indian. Do you have a best friend?
Yes.
What race is your best friend?
Chinese, because we have a lot of things in common. Like they have exactly the same shoes, and then we like the same color.
Okay. Your best friend? What race is your best friend?
Indian.
You have 2 best friends. Okay. Oh, very fair.
She's from Malaysia.
Do people make jokes about your race?
Sometimes. Why not sometimes?
How do you feel with it when you hear the same thing like this?
I feel like why another this culture like that?
Because I'm the type that is very, very pale. That is like born very white. And then they say that I like look very pale and then I look nice.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel a little upset. I don't like to be insulted. Sometimes I just like start to shout and scream because I usually can't control my temper. I'm very hard.
They say they're very dark.
They like to eat me because I'm like chocolate. Because they do have hair and then they're saying that I look like a bear. And then I feel a bit angry and I feel whenever they say I laugh and then they get irritated and then they just run away.
The best friends are the same race. They don't talk about these issues at home. Once a year, they come to school, we have Racial Harmony Day. But what they remember is the fun, the food, the celebration, the costumes. Is that enough? What about the deeper issues, the challenges and problems? When are they going to have an opportunity to understand those? The Channel News Asia IPS survey found that 43% of parents do not tell their children about what might offend other races. But what worries me most is that 41% of parents do not tell their children that racism is bad.
Hi guys, so as Robin has said earlier, I'm going to present to you 3 different domains of Chinese privilege, which are namely daily life, in the workplace, and in the entertainment industry. So for now, I'll now talk about Chinese privilege in our everyday lives, and because of time constraints, I'll focus on one particular aspect of Chinese privilege, which is education. I'm pretty sure all of us has been through the Singaporean education system, and we have sat in classrooms like this. And one particular aspect of Singapore education that we're supposed to go through is in secondary school, and we're supposed to take this particular subject called social studies. And I'm also sure that we've all seen these 2 books before, and we've taken this exact same social studies syllabus because we are all around the same age. And one aspect or one chapter in the social studies syllabus actually tells us that Singapore is a racially harmonious country, and that we must go to very extreme lengths and we must take a lot of effort to protect this racial harmony. However, what actually is inherently wrong with this social studies syllabus is that it gives the implicit assumption that there is already a permanent state of racial harmony and racial equality in Singapore, which is simply not the case, because we have seen reports of racism appearing in Singapore, and which already is an indicator of racial inequality, and that some people feel justified to commit blatant acts of racism towards other minorities. Moving on, we have Chinese privilege in the workplace itself. Even in the workplace and in the workforce, Chinese privilege is still present, and it's just that sometimes we cannot see it as the majority and aren't part of the majority. In the workplace itself, we see open space offices like this, and it is in such environments that sometimes racism and racial privilege can happen. These are instances of job discrimination, like what Rabia has said earlier, instances of racism against a particular minority through a hiring process, like Prima Deli and Yao Yao. And this also happens in the tuition industry itself, where this particular employer only asked for one particular Chinese female to teach his or her kids. And honestly, this is really not fair, because all these jobs are supposed to be based on the idea of meritocracy, the best person for this job. But in this case, they are only specifically looking for somebody of a particular skin color and somebody of a particular gender, which honestly is just not fair. Finally, we have Chinese privilege in the entertainment industry itself. In the entertainment industry, we often see different aspects of representation from different people of different backgrounds, and this is reflected in our own local media. However, we often see that the Chinese are overrepresented sometimes, and we often see more Chinese being represented on media like local magazines, 8 Days. We see more Chinese rather than other people of other races. And this is one instance which is just blatantly ignorant. This is a Chinese TV show which actually shows a Chinese actor in blackface. And the context is that this actor was chosen to pretend to be an African man
because there's simply no other actors or talent pools to draw from. And even then, one of the characters in the shows actually said that whether it's Chinese, Indian, or African, it's all the same one. And this is just ridiculous because it just shows a lack of effort to reach out to other different races and to find different talent pools. So now I'll pass on to Sarah, who will now talk about the problems of Chinese privilege.
Thank you, Xavier, for that. So now the thing to note about Chinese privilege is that it borders on racism. There's a fine line between being racist and being privileged. So what happens when the Chinese majority are unable to detect their own privilege? They're insensitive to needs of minorities. That's the racism they occur. So now let me bring you through one recent example of racism. Okay, so this was posted on Miss Amy Chong's personal Facebook page. This post was directed towards a Malay couple who was hosting their wedding at a void deck near Miss Chong's home. So they were making a bit of noise, and she was unhappy, and so she said that, and she insinuated that these Malay weddings weren't real weddings. And so yeah, but thankfully these acts of racism, these blatant acts of racism, are not very commonly seen in Singapore. But of course, they have the potential. To lead to more serious racial conflicts. Okay, so now the Chinese in the audience may seem a bit tense, but don't worry, we can fix this, okay? We're not asking for big changes, we're asking for everyone to take small steps in recognizing your privilege. Okay, so yes, firstly, for the Chinese to recognize their privilege. We as the majority race, we have the ability to dictate what is considered normal and accepted and what is not. So it's not fair for us to measure another race's cultures and perspectives against our own, because it's not the norm for them. It's not the norm for them just because it's the norm for us. So secondly, we want the Chinese majority to listen when the racial minorities speak. We don't want to speak up to them, we don't want to speak over them, we just want you to listen and empathize. Very often their experiences will be foreign to you, but that doesn't mean you get the chance to invalidate their experiences and disregard their emotions. Because if we do that, what we're doing is we're hampering ourselves from really achieving a truly harmonious Singapore. Okay, so now that you heard us talk for the past 10 minutes, I believe you all have a greater understanding of what Chinese privilege is.